Hello. Hello. Hello.
All right, let me screen share. Okay. So welcome everybody, just some preamble initially. So welcome to the Kubeflow Pipelines community meeting. Today's date is September 10th, 2025. This meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. The meeting is recorded and will be uploaded to the Kubeflow YouTube account after the call has ended. So first of all, before we proceed, are there any new participants on the call who would like to introduce themselves?
Yes, I am new attendance. Hi, Urin. I am Aniket Patil, a third-year computer science student from Pune, India. I have been contributing Kubeflow pipeline for the past few weeks, mostly in the SDK area. This is actually my first experience contributing to open source, and I am very excited to learn more and contribute actively to the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Anika. Welcome. It's a great community to join.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. We're excited for the contributions that you make and happy to help in the process. Anybody else a first-time attendee or want to introduce themselves? Okay, great. So let's go through these items. First of all, a reminder that V1 will be sunset at the end of the year. If you have concerns around that or objections, this is a good place to voice them in this issue or thread. Yeah, go ahead, Ricardo.
Yeah, a couple questions here. I don't know if you guys brought this question to the general community meeting in the past, because I remember a lot of users are still under V1, and I don't know if that changes since then. So it would be good for having them understand that this is needed because we need to focus on V2, and well, just make that general announcement. The other question I have, I'm sorry, I didn't have the chance to take a look at this this issue yet. Oh, it's a discussion. That's why I didn't see it. I believe as part of the V1 sunset, we should be looking for all the V1 issues and start closing them because we won't support them anymore. Is that a true statement?
I think so. Go ahead, Himay.
Yeah, we'll probably talk more about this in the last topic because this ties into that. First thing, I think we probably need to update this. I don't think it's going to be end of year anymore, but again, that's going to be subject to the last points discussion, so we can wait until then. Yes, we're not going to be adding any new features to for the V1 capabilities. We will have extended support for the release prior to V1 removal, where we will support CVE fixes. We will also, allow community to volunteer bug fixes as needed. We might chime in if it's something super critical and affecting a lot of users as well, given bandwidth permitting. But I think there'll be some nuance in what issues we close. But I think I'm fine with closing any new feature issues though. But anything that's like severe bug related, I think we can keep them open.
Thanks, Humir. And Ricardo, to your other point, are there specific places where you would like for this to be announced?
Well, usually the general community call is usually the best place to do it. Maybe this happened in the past. I just don't remember, but it's always good to, just give some updates on this, especially if the timeline is going to be changed. I know that's still under discussion, but like I said, maybe if you want Sunset will impact a lot of the Kubeflow user base. So they should be aware that this will happen pretty soon and they should take actions now. One last topic about this. It would be good if we review the migration documentation to see if we can gather more information on the pain points for users to migrate from V1 to V2 and update the document accordingly.
Yeah, that makes sense. There is fairly comprehensive documentation that already exists, but we can do like a once over and make sure that there aren't like recent changes that aren't accounted for in those migration docs. Like there are probably some new like KFP Kubernetes features that are not documented there, for example.
Yeah, a lot of things has changes, especially in the SDK, and that blocked a lot of V1 users to migrate to V2. So one of the things that maybe track directly in the Slack channel is to see how many users were blocked by upgrading to V2 due to KFP lack of features, and then notify them that this issue is already part of V2 and also update the documentation. Anyways, just to say, I am volunteering to do this if needed. So just let me know if you want, like, you can find maybe Ricardo Martinelli. I don't know if that's a better way for this, but anyways.
I'll just write Ricardo without the tag.
Yeah, that works. And then I'll say what I can do with that.
Yeah, thank you for volunteering. Super helpful.
Yeah, it's a good call out too. There are definitely some gaps here. Okay, moving on. Thanks, Ricardo. So Matt, you want to take the floor?
Yeah, it's more of a brainstorming kind of discussion. I'm looking for more ways to engage with our user base because I thought the announcement that V1 would be sunset would bring a lot more attention, but from what I've seen, it's like we've gotten kind of almost no reaction. So to me, that tells me that people aren't really aware and seeing any sort of announcements or news that we have. And so I'm trying to come up with ideas to reach our users more. And one idea was to just have a new section in the UI that loads up announcements. Like it reaches it out from GitHub or somewhere else and lists out the announcements, so we could have links to surveys to like for users to provide their feedback on certain things we're trying to improve, or just like aware of new features coming out, because sometimes we're adding new features that address a major pain point, but no one really even, or like I don't know how aware users are of those new features, especially if the admin is the one that's doing the upgrades and stuff. Of KFP might not even know that there was an upgrade that happened. So I just wanted input from folks on the call.
Right on. Go ahead, Humir.
Yeah, I heavily plus on this idea. I think it's very standard in software to have like announcements pages, and we can talk about how we want to do it. I think there's different ways we can go about it. Like I like the idea of like a note, like I said, if you do a fresh deployment, you definitely see at least some announcement, or if you're I don't know, like how we reset and redo an announcement, or if it's like a dedicated announcements page or something. But I think this would be great.
Go ahead, Ricardo.
I'll ask for Andrew for confirmation on that, but I believe the way to reach the most of the Kubeflow users is by the Kubeflow discussion mailing list. I believe everyone, well, probably the working group leads are able to send to post on the mailing list without any pre-approval. But I believe that that's the way you could reach more users when you need to announce, like you want to sunset new features, etc. Usually the mailing list is more for the general Kubeflow releases in the past, but I believe it's better if we can use mailing list for more working group focused discussion as well.
So I can add on this. I think this is I agree with you, Matt. It's the real problem how to get users aware. I think eventually we should use Kubeflow Discuss for everything, and it's not only for platform releases, etc. But the problem is even the Kubeflow Discuss mailing list is not really active, as I can see. So yeah, I think like we have a really big problem of how to inform users, and I agree that we should probably add a banner. I think maybe one of the idea also could be to add the warning to the pip install V1 SDK. I don't know if that is possible, right? Somehow, so for everyone who is using KFP V1, just get a warning when they install it or when they use the APIs, right? And also, I think we should ask outreach committee Valentina and Tarek to post this to LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social medias we have. Because it's very hard. For example, I gave you like our past experience on China, right? We released it like in August, and we kind of announced the sunset of V1 just maybe like half a year before we release it, but we didn't really get a lot of feedback from users unless we really stop releasing the V1 at all, right? So this is like the problem for like many other projects as well. So it's tricky.
I think that I don't see any of these suggestions as being mutually exclusive. I think that like I would still like us to explore a in service announcement mechanism, and gauge thoughts around that, because I do see this as like a surefire way of trying to just getting everybody, because like they're already there. We don't have to try to like increase the popularity of Kubeflow Discuss. We don't have to try to get people following like the LinkedIn, Kubeflow, whatever. I think we should continue to announce things there and trying to do all of those things, but it's just typical. Like I see this so much where like you have announcement sections in your apps and you can see like, okay, V1's being removed, or oh, there's like a new upgrade that's coming up and I need to be prepared for it, or Minio is now being removed and Seaweed is being introduced. Like trying to be able to communicate these big things. I personally like this approach. Matt?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. If we do this approach, I guess is there resistance of if it did reach out to the internet so that you always had a live feed essentially? Because I worry about baking it into the release and an admin doesn't update it for a year, 2 years. Like the announcements may never be reached, and it could be an option where we disable it too. But you'd have to opt out of it. And I just wanted to know like what people thought of that.
Yeah, I think like configuration would have to be configurable since like some folks might deploy it in an air-gapped environment.
Also, if there's version drift between what you have deployed internally versus what's available externally, that doesn't always reflect well on an internal platform. When users are like, "Hey, I want to use this cool new feature," and you're like, "No, sorry, you can't." So making it configurable, I think, is definitely advisable. Another thing I just wanted to add was maybe there's a feedback collection form so that people can like. I think in general, just like taking a step back the people who consume the announcements as they currently are, and the people who participate on the maintainer working group calls and follow the Kubeflow digest are typically platform administrators. They're not data scientists and business analysts and direct end users a lot of the time. And so I think there is a gap here. And I think plugging in directly into their UI is a great way to close that gap. You know, we don't just want to hear from the platform administrators. We want to hear from the people that are like just consuming it and have no idea how the platform's deployed or anything like that.
Oh, so do we have any action items to like, can we start with a GitHub issue thread on this and get buy-in from folks? Because I think we'd need to probably get buy-in from platform on this, since this is an external connection that'll be coming out of one of the components to the internet to fetch information on updates, announcements, and so on.
So, Homer, when you say from the platform, you mean from the Kubeflow manifest release?
Yeah,
So
because
the
it would
trick is
be
there,
Mhm.
yeah, the trick is there. We kind of like postpone releases, right, because of graduation. So I don't want you guys to be blocked by this, right?
In the worst case, we could just have it be disabled in the like platform manifest level deployment if it came down to that. But
yeah,
yeah,
but I mean, there are many, many people who consume KFP outside of platform, right? You know, just from the
yeah,
manifest,
yeah.
right?
We can, I mean, again, there's like different ways we can
So
do it. We can have knowledge, like
yeah,
awareness of what version KFP is deploying on, and when we push out announcements, like we can have them propagate to the right versions as they are appropriate. That's like one way you could do things, but
is there a chance to just print a warning like when we just do pip install KFP?
a warning.
For the V1 sunset, yes, I think that's a great idea. I think there might already be some. There's a warning about Python versions. We could add one about the V1 sunset, but it's like that's, I guess, the one that's top of mind. But I wanted to solve this also more generally about like how to advertise new functionality to existing users and other announcements that aren't as breaking as a V1 sunset.
All right, let's start with an issue. We can discuss more details and what are our next steps.
Sounds good.
I could try to vibe code a prototype if that would help the discussion as well.
What's the I live by POC or GTFO. That's like if I got a tattoo, that would be the tattoo I got. So all for it.
Nice.
Uh,
I guess my only other question on this topic is, should this be a discussion at the Kubeflow dashboard level as well? Like solve it once for the whole platform, or just focus on the KFP instance?
If we went broader, I think we'd still want it to be somewhat like it's pulling for different components from the component. Like you want component owners to have control over what announcements are being shipped off. It wouldn't be some like holistic, you know what I mean? Where one area that's publishing for all components, or I don't know.
That's a good point. But maybe in the POC could target just pipelines initially, but
Yeah.
be constructed in a modular way such that other components could leverage it.
Yeah.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, the next topic I had was if we should release KFP 2.15 this month, because we delayed the last couple of releases, and so we haven't been really releasing every quarter, so we could kind of get back on track. The other benefit too is there's a somewhat large change about the GORM upgrade where some schema changes were involved in the database, and so having that be like a small release and also not having MLMD removal as part of that same release reduces the risk of the upgrade. And so I would like to have like a small release with just that. What do others think?
I think
Sounds
that
good.
we've had some pretty significant changes happen in the last month, including the CV change. So I'm +1 for it. I just know that there was some Alex, you raised some concerns around regression, so maybe we can address those first, since they sounded severe. But otherwise, I don't personally see an issue with it.
Yeah, the other thing too is, we could always release, and we won't pull in that release until the regressions are resolved. That's another option. But I do consider those regressions to be quite severe.
No, I don't think, like, if I think like a pretty significant user base, for, like, i.e. Capital One has identified regression, I don't think we should just release, especially if we don't. I guess we can base it off overhead, like what overhead we're expecting the resolution to be. If we can do
Yeah.
it within September, if not, then we can discuss following it up in a patch release. I don't know.
Gotcha.
What do
I
we think?
appreciate that. That makes sense to me. The only question is just timeline for remediation, like you mentioned. Obviously a revert would be pretty straightforward. But yeah, then that's gonna. The question is, it's a whole other discussion, but how we address this regression is like a whole other topic, which maybe we could add to the end of this, and come back to it. But is that okay, Matt? Do you mind if we address this regression before we cut a release?
Yeah, absolutely. Alternatively, we could switch the default manifest back to MinIO, and still keep Seaweed FS, but it's just not the default until we have the regression solved. I don't want to put pressure on your team to solve it.
Okay, I appreciate that. You guys are so accommodating.
Well, the thinking is that if, like, you guys are affected by it, then it is very possible that other users can also be affected by it, right? So we have to be open to that possibility. I think that isn't to say that you guys aren't important, you are, but like it's just we expect that it to be a general enough issue that it could affect others.
For sure. I think so too. Although our use case is somewhat unique, but it would be that's why the artifact proxy exists. It's for precisely that use case. And so if that use case is no longer supported, there probably will be a broader impact outside of just us. So let me, as an action item for this, let me kind of start to do some investigation on what this fix would involve, and that'll give me a sense of like what the lift will be. And then based on that timeline, then we can make the decision if it makes sense to hold off on this smaller release until this is done.
Yeah, so our options are, if we can fix it in time, let's do that. If we can't, then we can switch back to Minio. Or I think the last resort is to cut the release, but follow up a patch fix if we deem it patch worthy.
Cut a release.
Yeah, I'd like us to avoid revert. It's too
Yeah.
significant of a change to try to revert now.
If not, continue.
Yeah, it's not reverting, it's more just swapping the default. So
Yeah.
any users using the customized environment in the manifests would get MinIO still. So I guess that would only impact like new users, essentially, new installations.
In the current state, can we just continue using MinIO? Like that's because if that's the case, then we're fine. If we just have to modify our manifest to use MinIO. I didn't get a chance to like review the Seaweed FS PR as in depth as I would have liked before the merge. Is there like does the UI still support MinIO?
Yeah, well, the UI should. We didn't make any significant changes to the UI in that PR.
Okay. If that's the case, then we can just, we have our own kind of version of the manifests, but we would want to validate that, of course,
Yeah.
and make sure it continues to work.
Yeah,
We
I
should
imagine
verify.
we'll continue. We have CI that is still testing with MinIO on every PR and merge, and we want to keep that around because it seems like a common enough deployment pattern. There's no harm in continuing to support that.
There aren't any UI tests though, so I think just like manual verification. I don't think I tried the Minio UI deployment, so it's worth validating it.
We can always extend it.
Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks that a fix forward might be fairly trivial. Like, how hard would it be to just write a proxy? All you really need that pod in like Go that's really lean and is just making the request on behalf of the UI. All you really need is like something that can assume the role that's associated with the namespace or access the credentials that are only available in the namespace, and that's pretty. And that all happens out of band of the application logic itself. It's all like just using built-in functionality in the credential chain and Kubernetes and stuff like that. So I'm going to look into this, and then hopefully that's easy, and then we don't have to worry about all the other stuff, and we can make the release happen sooner rather than later.
Okay, yeah, let's just make a judgment call at the next community meeting,
Okay.
and we'll decide if we should release or not.
Okay, sounds good. Between these options, the next group. Okay, thanks everyone. Okay, Amir, do you want to talk about this one?
Hey, I'm glad we have you, Andre. Because I was hoping to talk a little bit about code reviews and using like tools like CodeRabbit to have some automated reviews using Gen AI. This is a org level thing, I guess. So I know that we talked at some point about it. I know Kubeflow was thinking about doing this. Do you know where we left off?
Yeah, I know there is an open ticket to enable Copilot within CNCF organizations, right?
Where is that ticket? You know?
In a service desk, right? I think you should have access, right, to the service desk.
Could you share a link in Slack
Yep,
afterwards, and I'll see if I can access it so we can follow that.
Yep. So eventually, I mean, overall, I 100% agree. I think that the only trick is there we need to be compliant with CNCF, right? So there are many different tools, right? We can enable for code review, right? And I think I kind of like distinguish this between two different topics around code reviews and using, assistants to help us be more productive. I know, for example, like we want to introduce agents.md to Kubeflow SDK. I think we kind of like want to be, I know that other communities, like I give you, my experience with Jupyter, they kind of like want to introduce some sort of, set of rules or set of kind of requirements if you want to use AI assistant tools, how you should use them, and like what is the right way to use them to be more productive. I think this is maybe something which we can also kind of encourage our contributors, because I think like what we see as of today, right, there are a bunch of tools and many different folks just don't know how to use them, and because of that we see a lot of PRs which is low quality, right? But it doesn't mean like we don't want to, allow them to use AI tools, right?
Is there any appetite for like making these tools available? Because it's not so far. I guess my concern with the Copilot through CNCF is that while we're waiting for that, there are other tools that we could be using today that are free to use and are open. I, Matt, is CodeRabbit is free to install, right?
Yeah, it's free for open source projects.
Yeah. So like we could enable that today. It would lower a lot of reviewer burden for us and helping us catch like, a lot of the more trivial sorts of coding issues and lets the reviewers focus on higher level stuff. So,
Yep.
yeah,
I think we
like,
can follow up. So I can see I pinged them already in 14 so focused. I didn't see any response from them about CodeRabbit. Maybe I can ping them again and I can link this service desk ticket here in the KFP docs. So maybe we can follow up.
Do you think it'd be possible for us to pilot CodeRabbit just in pipelines and then provide feedback to the Kubeflow community?
Yeah, I think we tried this before. I think it was a blocker from, CNCF to do it, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like it's not something, we block and we can, reinitiate this discussion.
oh, so it was for any tool. They're saying don't use it until.
Yeah, we can double check. So this is so I linked the ticket here. Not everyone has access, but the maintainers should have access. But we should just find this thread when we discuss the tools, right, for code review. I know Yuan, for example, added something there, so we can take a look.
I think I have access to this. Yeah.
I can also, yeah, we can also ask, do you have access, Homer?
No, I don't. Let's sync up in Slack. I'll reach out.
Yep.
And you can help us get access. Cool. Let's keep going. We're running out of time. Thanks, Andre.
I'll stop my share. You want to share a screen, Matt?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so someone in the Red Hat design team has been helping us with creating new logos for KFP. And so the first one is just like more of a drop-in replacement for the one that we have today. And so this is what they came up with. So I wanted to know first and foremost, like, what do people think about this new logo? And I can pull up the existing one for context. So this is the existing one. Proposed one. I think it's very similar to the trainer, and that's where the inspiration came from the designer. Anyone prefer the old logo?
Is it the old logo or just the Kubeflow logo? What's the difference?
It is just the Kubeflow logo.
Yeah. So it's a non-option.
So I will say I like the new logo. I'm wondering if it is too close to the trainer logo, like if you want them to be a bit more distinct. And I can see arguments for both,
Can
like
you show that?
sides.
It's different enough that this one has cycles in the graph, whereas pipelines is direct cyclic. So
I you know that be like be able to tell the difference.
if they know anything about graphs, I think it should be pretty obvious by looking at it. But I guess maybe that's me.
And to be clear, I actually do like the new logo, but just like no one's opposing it, so I figured.
Just one of the idea, I think we can also ask, propose a ticket and, ask for more samples from CNCF.
Do
Right.
this. Make a Slack comment and do a thumbs up on the Slack comment and do a thumbs down on the Slack comment. And we can do a
Yeah.
poll that way. Is there a way to get polls in our Slack?
I think it's enabled in CNCF. We can double check.
That'd be nice.
And then the other one is we were talking about having a version 2 of the logo with mascot. So we like the beaver based on some banter in the CNCF Slack, but this was kind of the inspiration. So the feedback that I got privately from Humair was that he would prefer if there was more of like a flat color tone rather than all these gradients and stuff. More similar to like the Golang Gopher or the Octo, with the Octo thing in GitHub.
Cat.
Yeah, OctoCAD. What do people think of having this as a second option when we have more space? The idea being that, like, if you have a cute animal associated with your project, people will maybe subconsciously like it more and have it think that it's more inviting. And that is just pop psychology, folks.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if we should have a mascot for the entire foundation. And then, I mean, I don't know, like, we can definitely talk about it, but I think it's cool. I think it's kind of like, it's kind of a branding question, right? Because we have a bunch of these projects, right? And they have their own logos, like how we can, they kind of unify by the design, but at the same time, having a mascot is interesting. So maybe something we can think about.
Do we want a mascot for Kubeflow as a whole as opposed to just for pipelines?
Only if they can keep the beaver.
Yeah.
It might be weird if each sub-project has a distinct mascot.
Yeah. Or you should, build your own mascot by combining all the projects together somehow.
Yeah. I mean, Argo has been successful with having a single mascot for all of their projects, so you could follow suit.
Yeah, I think having something similar to Argo would be really nice for us, I think, as from a branding perspective.
Yeah. Okay, so bring that part about the mascot up in the general Kubeflow meeting.
Yep.
If Kubeflow were to be represented by an animal, which animal would it be? Sounds like a party
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
or
it's a
something.
good question actually.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. The next one is a pretty hefty one, and we have 1 minute left, so we're likely gonna go over. Just remember that the call is being recorded if you can't stay over. So we've been talking a lot about some pretty big changes to Kubeflow pipelines that we're trying to work around using like automated migration and all that stuff, or like keeping APIs compatible, this and that. But like, we're starting to question whether maybe we should just do a major version. Now, let me preface this by saying is that this wouldn't be like the V1 to V2 upgrade. We would keep the APIs the same for the most part, so the transition should be seamless. Where we can't, we would provide automated migration. But some of the things that we've been talking about are things like MLMD removal, which is a pretty huge change to KFP. We've been talking about having a single driver. We've been talking about providing support for external metadata providers, just removing V1 entirely with the deprecation notice that was given out a few months back. And we need to also at some point remove Minio and just do a complete switch to Seaweed. Right now we support both in our manifest and so on. And we also been talking, we've been talking about merging all the packages into just one package. Right now there's 4 of them. So so the question is, and we're looking at doing all of this in a very like short time frame because a lot of this is already active. We're actively working on MLMD removal, and we already have a cap up for single driver, and some of the other ones are more low overhead, even though they can be like big changes. So the proposal is that instead of the we had talked about doing a release with V1 and having extended support of that and doing another minor release where we drop V1, we would instead do that as being the final 2.x release. And that will be the continued support with the V1 APIs. And then we will do a major release for 3.0 where we introduce all of these new changes. So what is the community's thoughts on that?
We're planning to do any design docs for the general KFP 3.0 architecture.
The architecture is not going to see as big of a change as it did from V1 to V2. It's going to be more optimizations and reducing overheads in deployment, simplifying architectures, I would say, along with introducing some other new or more groundbreaking features. So we should probably write a doc about what this is going to entail to pace expectations. That can even be just like a milestone that we create and fill it out. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I really wanted to see is how KFP 3.0 will look like after all of these changes, because it looks like, well, MLD removal will surely remove such a component in the architecture, as well as the single driver, and probably the process for executing a workflow will change with that feature as well. So it would be good for having a broad understanding on how all of these major changes will impact in the final design. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
it's just informally, just for the users to understand how the new architecture would look like, and just to say it will be simpler, it will be lightweight, and and propose that this will make their workloads like better in terms of, just pitching myself here, just selling the new version to the users.
I'll say, like, to clarify, there's no breaking changes for the user. It's all, I guess, deployment level changes or behind implementation detail changes. So yeah, the single driver, I guess, would change if you're used to seeing like a driver pod per task for your debugging. If you're querying the MLMD API directly, that would be different because now there's a KFP REST API. But to me, I'm very +1 to a 3.0 version just because of especially the V1 removal, because usually like you don't include breaking changes in like a minor release. And I think it's significantly different enough with the MLMD removal that it's worth to bump the version.
For whatever it's worth, I think if there were no other changes but the V1 removal, that in and of itself could be justification for bumping major. Also, V2 has had a bit of a rocky kind of journey, and it's come a long way, but it would, like, on some level, it would be nice to disassociate from it and have a fresh start in a much better place where things are like lined up in a way that they really weren't for V2 when it was initially released.
So I also spoke a little bit about like the versioning of the API with Matt, and we're of the opinion that like the versioning for the REST API is going to operate on a separate versioning, and we're going to keep that major version the same. So it's going to be, right now it's V2 alpha, or is it V2 beta? I think it's V2 beta 1, right?
Beta 1, yeah.
Yeah. So we're just going to bump that to V2 because nothing should be in alpha and beta. That includes the pipeline spec. These are released APIs, and they're being used in production. So we'll bump those, but we won't bump their versions. Yep.
But the caveat there is that we'll keep the endpoints for V2 beta 1, so old SDK installations will still continue to work on like a 3.0 KFP.
Yeah, the biggest change here is we will drop the V1. Actually, we might actually be keeping the V1, or are we removing those? Since now in 3.0, Alex, you said that Capital One would be able to make the switch faster. With the 3.0, the timeline for this, I think it gets pushed down a little bit more. That might have even more time for you guys to switch. My preference is we drop the V1 APIs in this major version entirely along with the components.
I'm on the same page.
I just want to delete that code. Like it adds a lot of overhead because there's a lot of like conversioning happening, and a lot of it is like we're querying like V1 tables for when we're fetching runs for V2. Like we do like all this stuff is like intertwined. So it would be nice if we can just get rid of all that V1 stuff. So if we don't see a problem with it, that would be my preference, is to drop the V1 APIs, but we still keep the V2 beta 1 APIs around, and we're just bumping the version pretty much.
No objections here.
Yeah. We would deprecate the beta APIs though.
Deprecate them. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Does anybody have objections to bumping major? Are there any reservations about that?
We did want to take this. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say like no reservations, but like one thing I want to make sure we do is like keep branding and sort of messaging top of mind with this. So really focusing on that, like blogs, whatever, videos, like anything of that sort. So yeah, let's just make sure we keep thinking about that over the next few months, because it does take time to plan and like write some of that stuff. So yeah. Go on, Matt.
Yeah, I'll +1 that. Like MLflow recently did a 3.0 release to like rebrand as like in the Gen AI space. And we could also use that same opportunity for 3.0. It's kind of funny that the versions align there, but we should take the opportunity to rebrand and post all over social media and stuff.
Yeah, we know like folks are using Kubeflow pipelines a lot for Gen AI use cases. It's just a matter of documenting and like the marketing side of things, which we should take this opportunity to fully like invest in. Okay, timelines. So we floated the idea of
Sorry, before I jump in, there's a quick
Mhm.
question on the 3.0. So I'm just curious, though. So I know, there is a work of, experiment tracking going on, and I guess like right now it's been postponed given other priorities. So what are your thoughts for 3.0 in the context of experiment? Do we still want to maintain this in the KFP?
So there's a point here about external metadata providers, and we haven't had a chance to make this proposal yet because we've been involved with the MLMT removal. But we'll make this proposal where we want KFP to be able to integrate with other external metadata providers, but it remains unopinionated on those providers. The proposal will allow other users to be able to provide a plugin style architecture, and if they want support for like ML flow, well, we'll do some out-of-box support for the popular ones like ML flow, weights and biases, and all that stuff. But if you're using something else, you should be able to plug in with it and have KFP write its metadata out to those providers, so you can leverage and compare your runs there instead. So KFP will always have a sorry.
Finish your point.
Yeah, I was just gonna say KFP will continue to retain its out-of-box support and what have you, but it will also allow you to go into this external metadata provider mode.
Yeah, I mean, like, because like maybe we should have flowed the entire metadata providers for all the projects within Kubeflow, right? Because, like today the hyperparameter optimization required to run some metrics, right? You have modular registry, right? And etc. Right? So, I think 3.0 is great, but we definitely need to think about what is the ideal user experience, right? And as of now, I guess it's really hard for users to really navigate. I think this is one of the gaps for KFP. It's really hard to manage and install, right? And because we have a bunch of, we have the API server, for example, like, do we need API server? The question is, right? Also, like, we have this MLMD dependency, etc. We have experiment tracking. Where do we need to have experiment? We can just fully rely on MLflow experiment concept, for example, right? So there are many things we definitely maybe should talk about during the architecture review for 3.0. Don't know, like, if you guys kind of agree or disagree with that.
Well, I think there's an opportunity where we can have a deployment option to have MLflow deployed alongside Kubeflow and have the integration enabled automatically, so that you're offloading experiment tracking to MLflow. That's one that Red Hat's particularly interested in. So that's something that my team will be working on anyways. So we can make sure that that's just very easy to do from the manifest repo.
Yeah,
That would be great.
Uh,
Yeah.
I just MLMD was like one example also of like a third party that KFP used and ML registry used. Here, I think our intent is but it was done in a strange way where it became this like hidden internal third party metadata provider service, where we're talking about making that be more visible, accessible outside of KFP, and it's something more general, and it's not just strictly tied to one, and something that other components can also integrate with, right? So rather than like
I
KFP
kind of,
getting
yeah. I mean, I
ownership
kind
of
of
it.
like view, yes, like from my perspective, I see a lot of value of KFP for all the functionality it gives, but I think we definitely need to, think about what is the real value proposition of the pipelines, right? The value proposition that you can stitch multiple stages within your lifecycle together, right? And you probably should reuse those pieces if they already exist, right, within the ecosystem. And yes, KFP, allows you to plug in other tools if you use within your platform, right? And it's great. But I think the experiment concept would kind of maybe overused throughout the years, I would say. Like the experiment as itself, right? Yeah, and we don't have right now the good story around the metadata tracking within all those experiments, right, and runs, etc. So, I would love, if, we can talk about it sometime in the review cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. When we make that proposal, we'll like put it in the Kubeflow wider, broader channels to get everybody's thoughts on it as well. And get this maybe a discussion going on across components.
Yeah, and I also think if January, February is too soon, like we can postpone this, and if we want to get feedback early on like the MLMD removal stuff, like we can at least have like beta releases or alpha releases of version 3, and get feedback there while we kind of iron out some of the other things we want to include in 3.0.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
good.
don't think it's this one is not as like destructive in APIs and what have you. It's it can also just follow a minor release or a official GA release of 3.0.
And just to clarify, there might not necessarily be a tension here, right? Like migrating away from MLMD for metadata storage is not really providing a turnkey end user facing metadata like SDK for end users. So like those two things can happen in tandem. There's not necessarily a conflict of interest there. And then there is I agree, Andre, that there is a need for some kind of unified interface that's consistent across the platform. I just think I don't think this MLMD deprecation undermines that effort.
Oh, 100% it does not. The MLMD removal is not tied to a replacement with some other third party. The MLMD removal is to get rid of this dependency because MLMD started getting used in KFP for some very critical functions for operating and running the workflows, and it became just not a metadata provider storage. So the MLMD removal removes that dependency, and the KFP just depends on its own database and has its own logic to manage those artifacts and manage the DAGs and so on, and add some much needed changes to like the runs API. So the support for external metadata providers is a separate thing. That's hence why it's like a separate point. It would be a separate feature to that.
Yep. Cool. I know we're way over time, but on that topic, in the chat, Michael suggested that we consider making this meeting an hour instead of 40 minutes. Are there any concerns or objections to that proposal?
I have no objections.
Cool. I feel like the scope of some of the changes that are in progress right now, it feels like the pace of change is accelerating in a positive way, but that ultimately means like some things require more discussion because there are a lot of big changes coming down the pipeline. So I think an hour makes more sense. So
Yeah. Somewhat related. So just one more thing about 3.0. We'll start with the feature branch, and we will send all of these changes there and keep it rebased onto on top of the development branch, and we'll just follow that workflow. What do we think?
sounds good.
Yep.
All right.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope I didn't drop the ball too bad. And looking forward to the next community call. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Alex. Matt will host the next one, right?
Woohoo.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.